is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Going on, but tell me about this investigation into John Ruiz, NILs, all that good stuff. Should we be concerned?
I didn't get that sense at all, that this is really an investigation yet. I think this is more of the NCAA knocking on doors to say, hey, you guys have been pretty involved in a lot of NIL deals, and we're just stopping by to visit and let you know that we're around and that we're asking questions and that we're probably going to be doing the same at other schools that have signed a whole bunch of NIL deals. I think more than anything else, they're just trying to make contact and understand that and send the message that, hey, we're paying attention. I don't think they have anything yet to really go on against Ruiz or anybody at Miami. It's not my sense from the people I've spoken to or the people at The Athletic have spoken to. I think it's just sort of the beginning phase of looking into NIL and how these deals are done. And really, I think if you ask John Ruiz, he almost feels like they're asking for advice on what they should be looking for and how to maybe modernize whatever sort of bylaws that they're going to create to run this thing.
That's actually that was going to be my follow-up question, because I didn't get the feeling it was an investigation. I got the feeling that they started in Miami and they're probably going to make a tour of going to a couple different schools to kind of get a feel for what's being done, so they know how to then create whatever they can to kind of regulate this if they can, or something along those lines. Because I think this is like a storm that came out of nowhere and they weren't prepared for it whatsoever. And I think the NCAA also has to be very careful on how they police this too, because it gets into violating people's rights and freedoms and how to earn money and make a living and all those kind of things. And so, and by the way, this is a right to work state. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know. In fact, I don't know out of all 50 which are right to work states and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not a lawyer and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn, so I don't know exactly how it all affects everything in the big picture and all that. But I do understand that because the landscape has changed, these kids now have rights that they did not have before. And you have to be very careful now all of a sudden.
Right now, what's really governing this is state law, and every state law is different. There's not a national law. So, the NCAA may want to enact certain bylaws, but if it's illegal in that particular state, they can't pass it. So, here's the reality, The reality is the fact that it's sort of the Wild West and there's nothing at all in place. It's really hard for the NCAA to crack down on anybody unless they have a smoking gun, unless they have receipts, unless they have video of John Ruiz calling recruits, high school recruits, and saying on the record, in clear as day, hey, I'm going to pay you $100,000 or $1 million to come to Miami.
Right.
So, again, you look back at what cases have actually, created crackdowns. Right, the Nevin Shapiro case. The only reason any of that stuff came out because it was federal documentation. Those interviews had to be done on the record. So, in this scenario, I know it's sexy to run the headlines. Miami's getting investigated, but I think the reality is they're not. They're being talked to about NIL because they're one of the schools that's heavily involved in it, and it's the early stages, and these guys are just doing their homework.
The other thing I thought about was. You've been going back and forth with Darren Rovell, and then that brings like a Ruiz and Rovell. It's like a UFC cage match every other day, and so I think that's also it's. I know that we sit back in Miami as fans and we say, well, why are we getting the unfair treatment and all that? Well, I don't necessarily feel like it's unfair. It's just you've also brought all kinds of extra attention to this situation more than others, and that's the obvious, and we can't deny it. And Ruiz going back and forth with Rovell, that's going to bring the attention of everybody, including the NCAA. You know what I'm saying? So a little bit of that also kind of, not that it affects it in a negative way, it it just brings it up to the forefront a little bit more. That's all.
And I would say this. So part of the reason everybody knows, the NCAA came down to Miami was because Ruiz talks to a lot of reporters, and he told them that he spoke to them. Most of these schools are going to keep this under wraps.
Right.
I was talking to the other writers at The Athletic about this because obviously everybody's, anytime there's anything new with NIL, the alarm clock goes off, right? Like we all got to wake up, pay attention, turn the radar on, what's happening. And, I told them, I said, we got to find out what's going on in Tennessee. We got to find out what's going on at Texas A&M. Ruiz is volunteering this information, but I'm sure the same conversations are happening at Tennessee and Texas A&M and Texas and all these schools that have done these big deals, but nobody's publicizing it because over there everybody keeps their mouth quiet and nobody says anything. So, yes, I would expect that there will be more noise eventually to come out about how many schools spoke to the NCAA about NIL. But for right now, I don't think it's anything Miami fans have to worry about. I think the bigger storyline this week is whether or not they'll beat out Florida for Jaden Rashada, the quarterback from California. That's kind of you want to ask what's going on summertime? I think that's a bigger deal right now than the Ruiz stuff.
It's, I retweeted something that Ruiz put out there, and to me, the funny part about all of this is, man, I'm rooting for the kids because all the system has ever done is take advantage of these kids. And all college sports has ever done, especially football and basketball, is make billions of dollars over the decades. And those kids didn't really get much. And they knew deep down inside, most of those kids going to college for football, they weren't going for an education. So they knew what was going on and what was up, and they knew that they were milking it and getting the max out of it. And now that these kids can actually get whatever they can while they're there, God bless them, dude. God bless them. And I root for Ruiz in that sense because the system has been so unfair to the kids, and kids have been stuck in schools for years after the coach leaves and recruits them there, and that went on for decades, man. And kids were in an unfair position. Now they can pick up and leave when things aren't right, when they're not being treated fairly, or they think they're not being treated fairly, whatever it is. But at least they have the same rights that some of these coaches have. And now they have the opportunities to make some more money, just like these coaches have been making hand over fist in forever in time. And so for me, I root for the students. And I'm
Absolutely.
glad that they're able to get anything that they can get because it might make their lives better. It might make their lives easier. It might take pressure off of them. It might take pressure off their families. So for me, I root for all NILs, every school, every person, every type of Ruiz that there is all over the country helping other schools. More power to. I know that there's another motive behind it for them, but I don't give a shit, dude. I'm rooting for the kids.
Well, and I would venture to say that Miami's probably been one of the more fortunate programs because, look, I made phone calls and talked to people at other NIL collectives, and I mean, Miami's got 115 student athletes or whatever, among those signed by Ruiz. I mean, there's other schools that have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 kids that have NIL deals, and that's it. So in that sense, you talk about spreading the wealth and being able to reward those people. Without doubt, I mean, they're very lucky to have Ruiz at Miami and to have the system they have set up where everybody gets a piece of it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, what's next in this whole thing? What have you heard?
Well, I mean, unless the NCAA comes back with any sort of real, information or whatever, I just think there's nothing. It's basically going to be Ruiz going back to work. It's a business as usual. I don't think anything sort of changes here unless there's a smoking gun, unless there's some real, information that comes to light that they're able to use against him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Recruiting wise, anything out there? What's going on with the Canes? Any transfer portal stuff? What do we know?
Well, they got 8 visitors this weekend. Jaden Wayne is the big one. He's a kid out of Seattle, Washington. I met him in January when he came down on an unofficial. He paid his own way to come down here to visit Miami for their junior day. And, they got a lot of national kids here from all over the country. The bigger story, I think, this week is Jaden Rashada, who was a quarterback Miami has been on pretty hard from the get-go. When I was out in Las Vegas last week, the conversation was, well, he's going to sign with Florida. That was the buzz coming out. Gators need a quarterback now. From some conversations I've had here in the last 24 hours, it looks like he's going to be visiting Miami either this weekend or next weekend. And so the Hurricanes, I think, have a shot here to get a 4-star quarterback, a top 10 player at their position in Mario's first real recruiting class. I think otherwise they'll end up with the kid who is here this weekend, which is Emery Williams, kid out of the Panhandle area. Florida State and Mississippi State are both on him pretty heavily. But every year we talk about the quarterback position. You got to bring one guy in every year, especially now with the transfer portal, right? Jake Garcia, who knows if he wakes up tomorrow and says, I want to take off, or Ja'Curry Brown, any of those guys. So every year you try to get a good quarterback in your class. I think Miami has a chance now to get Rashada, whereas before, a couple of days ago, that wasn't the case.
All right. What are you working on over at the Athletics so folks can check you out, my friend?
Well, I mean, I have so many stories I've been wanting to work on, but I got my daughter's dance recital tomorrow. I'm actually sitting in the car outside of their Coral Springs Amphitheater up here where they're going to be performing tomorrow. And, there's going to be stories written. Man, I got so many interviews with so many different kids. I did a podcast this week. I had a story on the latest recruit that Mario got committed, a tight end out of the Minnesota area, a kid who's a former lacrosse and hockey player. Jackson Carver's his name. And, they could potentially have another tight end commit here pretty soon. A kid who's deciding, Reed McKeska, who's deciding between Miami and Oklahoma. So there's going to be tons of little tidbits and news and information, as well as some feature stories. Like I mentioned, the South Florida Express won the national championship last weekend. I have a story on them that's going to be coming out soon. I caught up with Bobby and Robbie Washington, 2 of the 6 commitments that Miami has right now. They were at UM's camp on Wednesday. Both of the kids were there. And so there's a lot of off-season recruiting type stuff, man, that'll be coming your way at the Athletic for me.
I am looking forward to reading all of it, and make sure you guys subscribe out there and go to Caneswear, 2511 South University Drive. They've got practically anything and everything with the UM logo. They've also got a lot of great Dolphins gear, so you can get ready for the upcoming season. The Heat, baby. We got a nice free agency run now coming up here, and the draft, all kinds of stuff. Marlin season's going on. Inter Miami season's going on. You got it all there at Caneswear, and you can also get ready for the Florida Panthers off-season also. They got to make some moves too. Follow them on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. And, of course, check him out there at The Athletic and catch him twice a week doing his thing here. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And good luck to your daughter, by the way.
Thank you. They're both performing tomorrow morning. 2 shows tomorrow, yeah. So it'll be fun. I'll send you some pictures.
And you'll be nervous. You got it. All right, my brother.
All right, man. Take care.
Be good. There you go. Family first, baby. Always. All right. Caneswear, that's our family too. Great report by Manny.